Hi, this is Steph with Belladonna Dyes, and today's project is going to be a long sleeve double fan fold, and I'm going to be using Pro Chemical and Dye in the shade Stormy Grey. For this project, I'm going to start by centering the shirt. So right now I'm using a washable marker to mark out my center points, and then I'm going to tuck one sleeve inside the other sleeve. And what this does is it creates symmetry in the project. If you're unfamiliar with this process, I have a couple of standalone tutorials that are a little slower that explain the process step by step if you're unfamiliar with how to do this. This step just takes a little bit of practice, and from project to project, they always go differently for me. Some shirts will center really easily, and then others can be rather difficult. This one goes pretty smoothly. The next step is to draw on your pattern, and I'm using a washable marker and a piece of kite string to do so. Notice that I'm on the side that has the underarm. If I drew it on the other side, it would create a circle in the shirt. And you can draw your pattern on anywhere you want, but if you want your shirt to turn out like mine, you want to draw it on like this. Now I'm going to pleat along that line, making that line as straight as possible. And I'd say these pleats are around an inch tall, maybe a little bit less. This shirt took me quite a long time to pleat up and secure, about 45 minutes. So in some areas, I'm going to speed the footage way up. Instead of cutting it out and just jumping to the beginning and the end, I'm leaving it all in. Even though it's really fast, you can still get an idea of how I got from point A to point B. So you can see there, I made that line pretty straight. That red line that I drew on, it's not 100% perfect, but it's pretty good. Now I'm going to secure my project with rubber bands. And when choosing your rubber band size, you want them to be nice and snug. You don't want them too loose because your project can fall apart. You don't want them too tight because it can also make your project buckle. The goal is to have all of your pleats about the same height, and if they're too tight, it will kind of make the fabric roll a little bit. And after you do this for a little while, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Now down here in the starting point, like in the center of the project, the pleats are getting really super tiny. And I find them really hard to make. And ultimately, there's nothing you can do. They will just sort of run into themselves at the very end. Down here, I'm going to be using my tiny baby hair rubber bands, and you can find links down below in the description box for the tiny baby hair rubber bands and pretty much everything else that I use for tie-dye, so I recommend that you check that out. Now, where the pleats become hard to work with, I'm using my pleating tool that I get from Jen and John at Boredom with Jen. Jen and John have a new Etsy that they're working on, and it's Shop Boredom with Jen, and I do have a link down below specifically for them. It'll make it really easy for you to find the tie-dye tools that I use. I'm pretty happy with the beginning of the shirt. The baby hair rubber bands are holding it nice and snug, but the rest of the shirt just doesn't feel held together tight enough for me. So I decided to switch to my nylon string, and there is a link down below in the description box. I think the string is used for beading work. I'm not 100% sure, but it comes on a spool and it's nice to work with. I like it also because it doesn't really wick the dye like the kite string does. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to wrap my project up. Now, you could just stick with the rubber bands. You could use kite string if you wanted to create white lines in your project. I do not want white lines on the project. I want the dye still to flow through it, but I want it to be tighter. So I'm just going to wrap it around, like I wrap the string around maybe 3 times, kind of get it nice and snug, and then I move on. And I'm just probably doing it every couple inch intervals. That doesn't really matter. Like I said, I'm not trying to create any white lines or do anything with the string. I'm just trying to get it nice and snug. And I'm also going to speed this way up because, well, if you watch me wind it around a couple of times, you get the gist. And I am trying to be tidy with it. I'm trying to slow down a little bit and be more methodical with my work. I have a tendency to just want to speed things up and just get right to the dyeing process. And I don't really take my time with the pleating process because it's not my favorite part. You guys know that. So I'm just trying to slow down, take my time, be methodical, make things look neat and tidy. And I do find that it's helping me become a better dyer because this whole process, even though it's not fun, I know some of you really find the pleating process to be enjoyable. I don't. But this is the foundation for your tie-dye. And the more time you take, like the slower you go, the more time you take, you make sure that your pleats look nice and everything is tied up and it's nice and secure. It pays off in the end. The end results are going to be so worth it if you just do a good job in the very beginning. Even though this is going really fast, you can see the difference. The string is really making things nice and snug and secure. And if you don't have string or kite string or sinew, that is okay. You can still use rubber bands. Just really try to find the right size rubber band for your project. And I'm also trying to create one pleat from the very beginning all the way down to the end. So at the very beginning, they were tiny little non-existent pleats. Where I started, what did I say? They were about 3/4 of an inch to an inch tall. And then back here at the very end, they're more like 1 1/4 inches, 1.5 inches. I'm trying to make one pleat from the very start all the way to the end. Now, long sleeves can seem very intimidating if you're a brand new tie-dyer, but I just want to tell you guys, don't be afraid of long sleeves. It's nothing more than a short sleeve t-shirt with just a little extra fabric. Now that I've made it all the way down to the end, because this is not sinew and it won't stick to itself, I've got to work my way all the way back to the starting point. So I just quickly wind myself all the way up. If you've got a lot of tails and tags of fabric sticking out, try to catch those with your string. Once you get back down to the beginning point, just simply secure it with a simple double knot. Now it's time for my favorite part. We get to add the dye. And this is my first time using Stormy Grey from Pro Chemical and Dye. I've seen pictures out there on Facebook and it has some pretty splits. I hope I achieve those too. It's just a really nice color. I'm using my funnel scoop that I got from Jen and John. And I know that I just mentioned this, but I also know that many of you fast forward through these long tutorials. So where you're going to find the tie-dye tools is over on Etsy, and the new shop name is Shop Boredom with Jen. And the link is down below in the description box. Now I'm adding my dye in stripes. No really any rhyme or reason. I'd say I'm probably spacing the dye out about every 1.5 to 2 inches. And then I'm just gonna go back over and thicken up my lines. I want it to have enough dye on there so that it can saturate down through all of these thick pleats, but I also want to leave some white space so when I incline it, there's a little room for the dye to move so we can see what the color is capable of. For the setup, I have everything placed down inside of a gutter. Now my gutter is only 2 inches tall and my project is almost 2 inches tall, so there's just not a lot of room for ice. So what I did is I built it up by using foil, and it works really well. I wish I could say I came up with the whole gutter method, but I'm pretty sure it was Angie over at Fun Endeavors Tie-Dye Lab that came up with it, so definitely check out her channel if you haven't before. I'm going to get bigger gutters in the future like Scott Walker has. I just haven't done it yet, so I have to make do with what I have. Now, I'm giving it a quick little sprinkle of soda ash for good measure, and then I'm going to create an ice dam. I'm using a silicone cake mold and clothespins, and you'll find the links down below in the description box. What this does, it catches the ice, so when I put it up on an incline, the ice wants to roll downhill, and so this way I don't have to fill up the entire gutter with ice, and it saves my little machine. And then if you're like me and you like to use a scoop to add your ice, just pay attention and don't stick your scoop into the dye. Kind of defeats the purpose of using a scoop. Now, for the incline, I'm going to place it down inside of this tote, and I have an empty dye jar down at the bottom of the gutter. And when the ice melts and all that muck water is rolling down, it's going to go down into the tote, and up at the top of the gutter is hanging over the edge of the tote, right? I don't want a steep incline. That's why I put the empty dye jar down there. Now, it's recommended that you let your project batch at 70 degrees or higher for at least 24 hours after the ice melts, and I let this project batch for the full 48 hours. After the first layer of ice melted, I came back and I added a second layer of ice. There was a lot of undissolved dye on the project, and I wanted to push more through and get better saturation. As you can see on the back, there were some areas that weren't very heavily saturated, and I left it alone because I just wanted to see what this color is capable of. So now it's time for the rinse out process, and I start by using cold water. That's going to rinse away any soda ash that might still be reacting within the fabric, and then I increase my water up to hot, and I rinse until the water runs pretty much clear. From here, I take it to the washing machine, and I like to do hot water cycles using Curelon. Curelon is a professional textile detergent. And then I do a final hot water cycle using Millsoft, and Millsoft is a professional fabric softener. And then I put it in the dryer, and then I iron it, and I photograph it and do all that. And for the sake of the video, we come back and see the results. Now I tied this off with string, and I'm cutting it with scissors. I like to kind of try to fit the scissors down in between a pleat. Be really careful that you don't cut your fabric. And also really pay attention that you do not allow your string, your kite string, your sinew to go down your drain. I mean, it's a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised how many people think that they can just wash all that down the drain. No, don't do that. You're going to create a massive plumbing issue for yourself. So just be careful and pay attention to what you do. So I'm really happy with the color so far, and I actually really like the white space on it. So I'm excited to see what it's going to look like during the reveal. I want to take a moment to give a big shout out to the newest channel members, and I have 3 this time, and I'm super excited about that. So Art Dyes, Rebecca Hewitt, and Leanne Jimenez, thank you so much for your membership. All of your proceeds are going to go back into the channel along with the other members. What this does is it just helps me bring out new content. I'm able to get supplies and just keep things going. So thank you so very much. And for everybody, for those of you that click subscribe, it's such a huge help. You leave a thumbs up, you leave comments, and it just really keeps me going. So thank you. Well, here it is, guys. Here's our double Fanfold Incline icedye in the shade Stormy Grey from Pro Chemical and Dye after it's been washed and dried. That was a mouthful. Try to do that over and over again. Take 25. Anyways, I really love the way the shirt turned out. I think the pattern looks nice. At first, when I first opened it up, I didn't like the shirt. Not the color, but I didn't like how I did the shirt. But then after photographing it and looking at it in the pictures, I fell in love with it. And it kind of reminds me of like zebra. I mean, it's not zebra, but you know what I mean, like the dark and the light. The color is really beautiful. I need to play with it some more, I think, with maybe some watercolor ice dyes, just other applications, you know, where I add more dye, add more ice, you know, other things we're going to see more out of it. But at my first try, I'm really happy with the color. It's a really nice gray color. And then the splits, I'm seeing some greens, I'm seeing some purples. Not a lot though. It's kind of like a subtle type of split. So it's going to be a nice accent color. Overall, I'm really pleased with the way the shirt turned out now that I've been staring at it for a while. And I recommend that for you guys. You know, don't give up on your project. Iron it, photograph it, look at it in a picture and see if it changes your mind, because it usually always does for me. So overall, I couldn't be more pleased. What do you guys think of Stormy Grey? Please leave me some comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, leave a thumbs up, and click the bell and set it to all. That way you get notified of future uploads. And remember, have fun tie-dyeing!